Jim Green has entered the Moctoe game with their Meander and Workhorse models, and I've been wearing this pair for about 6 months, and I have some thoughts on them. Welcome, I'm Murawski. This is the channel that helps you own better, look better, and live better. All right, so I might as well explain first and foremost how I got these before anybody else and got 6 months worth of wear on them. Well, if you didn't know, Gareth from Jim Green and I are good friends, and when he was coming out with this boot, I asked him, can I possibly get a pre-production model to try? And for a long time, they were trying to get their system together. They had to buy new machinery. They really invested a lot in making a moccasin toe boot, which is pretty rare. But they wanted to make sure they got it right before he sent them over. And so they eventually sent a pair, I think it was sometime in maybe December, and I've been wearing them pretty steadily for the last 6 months. And you know what? Overall, if you don't want to watch the rest of this video, they're really great. But just know that these were sent to me free of charge, and further, these are a pre-production model. So these actually have a couple of differences from the ones that you could buy right now. First thing, these have speed hooks going all the way up, which I think was something they were considering doing in the beginning. They eventually replaced this. Now you get 2 speed hooks and 1 eyelet, which is actually better because what you could do is these speed hooks, you could obviously do them up very quickly, and then you put it through that eyelet to really lock it down. This is something that I do on my work boots all the time, and I kind of wish these actually had it on them, but either way, I haven't had an issue with these popping off. The other thing, they actually changed the last just a little bit from these right here. The new last has a little bit more room in the instep, which is right here. So if you have a tall foot, you know, kind of that ridge at the top of your foot, they call that the instep. I actually have a high instep, and it makes wearing most boots very difficult for me. However, with these, I haven't had any problems. So we're gonna get right into it. First thing, let me just get the details of this pair of boots right out of the way so you know what we're dealing with. This here is the Jim Green Workhorse Moctoe in the color Fudge. These are genuine moccasin construction, which we'll talk about a little bit later. They're made with a double layer, 2.2 millimeter of nubuck leather, lined with 1.6 millimeter of calf leather. They have a fully gusseted tongue, they are Blake stitched, and this particular model uses the Jim Green tire wedge sole, which I'm a huge fan of. They have a steel shank, a leather midsole, and a resin runner. Now, one of the coolest things is that Jim Green actually came out with 2 different models for this moccasin style. This obviously, like I said, is the Workhorse. The other one is called the Meander. Now, the Meander is named after an area in South Africa known as the Midlands Meander, which is an area known for its natural beauty and outdoor activities and stuff. It's in that spirit that Jim Green created this boot in an attempt to sort of complement the hiking, fishing, and bird shooting that area is known for. The differences between these 2 models is that the Workhorse has a steel shank, the Meander has no shank. The Workhorse has a reinforced collar, whereas the Meander has a padded collar. The Workhorse has external and internal heel counters, so the heel cup there. The Meander has an internal heel counter only. The Workhorse utilizes the tire wedge sole, and the Meander uses their Oringo sole. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about moccasin construction because that's kind of the thing that everybody's really excited about with these boots and what makes them so unique. So if you didn't know, a moccasin construction is basically your foot is wrapped like this in leather, right? So it comes up along the bottom. Of course, that leaves a whole bunch of leather at the top that needs to be gathered. Most boots, the leather is pulled down around the top. This comes the other way. So what they do with that extra leather in the moccasin toe construction is they actually have what's called an apron. Sometimes they call it different things, but that's basically this toe piece here. And then they sew it together with this welt. Now, what Jim Green has done, and what's so interesting, is that this welt is actually hand sewn on here. That is something that you can find in brands like Russell Moccasin and stuff like that, but you pay a lot more. Now, that moccasin construction makes for a very flexible boot, and that's the big thing that people like about that style is that they're extremely flexible, very comfortable. Matter of fact, the first time I ever wore a pair of boots that were made with moccasin construction, I kind of felt like I was ill-equipped to go to work. They felt so loose and flexible, almost like sneakers, that I was like, I feel like I should be wearing something a little bit more substantial. Although, I mean, hey, it works just fine. It's just a different feel. So if you like that sort of loose feel, then this is what you should be getting. They wear very easily. However, there is a problem that may plague you if you want to wear these for work, but I want to get into that later on when I talk about the in-use stuff. But the two boots that they came out with, the Meander and the Workhorse, are really kind of meant for two different things. If you think about it, the Meander has no steel shank, it has the padded collar, it doesn't have the double reinforced heel, so it's really meant to be a very loose, easy wearing kind of boot where you could put it on and basically feel like you're, I mean, right next to like being barefoot, it's gonna be the next best thing. And this Workhorse version, obviously, as is in the name, is meant for something a little bit more structured, a little more substantial. That's why I went with it, because I like work boots. But these really don't feel like my work boots, that's for sure. They are much easier wearing. You can put these things on and do anything and not feel that weird ski boot feel that you sometimes get with really heavy, especially Pacific Northwest boots. These feel a lot more easy wearing. Now, my 6 months of wearing these boots has been great. Like I mentioned, I got these sometime in the late November, beginning of December. We're now into May, so it's about 6 months, and they've been wonderful. Now, the big thing that you notice with these is the flexibility. As soon as you put them on, you realize how easily they bend. There really is no, a lot of times you get a lot of leather and you start feeling squeaking, and it's like, you almost feel like you're wearing an old pirate ship on your foot or something. It's like, it really takes a lot of breaking in. None of that with these. You put them on and it's like they just move along with you. The amount of flex, I mean, look at this. That tire wedge sole is awesome. This is one of my favorite soles that Jim Green makes, and it's one of the things that makes Jim Green Jim Green. They do things a South African way. It's just different than we have over here in the States, and I love it. It's just so unique and refreshing to see. And they look the part, you know, they look like a work boot. You know, they have everything that you would want on those. Although I will tell you this much, it was a little strange looking down and not seeing the welt shelf. So what you see is your toe and nothing sticking out. And when you're used to a double row stitch down construction kind of thing, like Jim Green does on their Razorback models or whatever, you look down and you see this, and it almost looks to me like I'm wearing slippers. Like you can see that that's it, it's toe and nothing else. Which kind of leads me to my big problem with these. There is no such thing as a perfect boot, and I think in the capacity that you're going to be walking a lot, standing, you know, those kinds of things, even going up and down ladders in a work capacity, these could be great. But the one issue that I had, and I didn't realize until later on, is that the fact that these things are so closely trimmed is actually a bit of a negative sometimes. So when you're kneeling down, for example, if you kind of kneel on your toe, sometimes I'm used to having the sole sticking out proud of the toe, maybe a half inch from here to a full inch, in the case of like a JK boot with a really pronounced lip. And it offers you some protection, a little bit of a bumper from the things around you. If you walk around and you kick the edge of your work table, you go, oh darn, and then you keep going on with your day. All right, let me give you an example. I'm out here working on my truck and I'm kneeling down on the concrete. And the first thing that I feel is my toe on the concrete wearing these Jim Greens. So, you know, that's not a big deal, but this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about. That being said, I don't really feel like these are work boots. I don't think that you'd see this on the job site very much, especially here in the US. They don't have any of the safety features that you need that are required by most of the jobs. They don't have a steel toe or a composite toe or anything like that. The Jim Green fudge leather is very unique, and I really like it because of its transformative properties. I mean, when you look at these things when they get a lot of wear on them, they totally change. And I think that's just so cool. And same thing with these. So when I actually put a coat of conditioner on there, I decided to take a video of them side by side so you can see actually how drastic that change is. They basically go from almost the color of this table here to like copper rough and tough. It's pretty dramatic, but I think it's really good looking. I think when you do put that coat of conditioner on there, they get dressed up a little bit, and they look really, really nice. And as you can see, there's a little bit of darkening around the edges here. I mean, again, 6 months of wearing them, and not especially hard. They've held up well. Now for the fit, Jim Green actually developed a special last for these boots, which is a combination of their JG last combined with the toe height of their STC last. I found them to fit about true to size, but of course you get that little extra room in the toe box like you would with any moccasin toe boot. Now let's talk about value. These come in at $280, which once upon a time, Jim Green boots were almost like a cheat code. Like those who knew about them, you could get a deal that was almost unheard of. You got so much boot for the money that you almost didn't want to say it too loudly because other people might hear and then they might raise their prices. I think what we have here is not so much that, but I think that they've really gone all in on their equipment, on their process of designing this new boot that it costs money. So I would say that they are a good value, but they are not that, oh my God, I stole it kind of value that you're probably used to with Jim Green boots, where, you know, I mean, it was just out of the ordinary. I still think they're a great value being a sub $300 boot with everything that you get, but they're not that unbelievable, holy crap kind of value that most of us are used to with Jim Green. One of the things that I want to commend Jim Green on is the way that they've been able to apply their stamp. Some people don't like the frog on the back. Personally, I love it. I wear my Jim Greens with pride. I want people to know that I have this pair of boots. I love, the name of that frog is Jim Green. That is Jim Green. Did you know that? But the way that this thing has been applied, my first pair of Razorbacks, which were old school, right? Very old way of doing them, it had the embossing on it, but you can kind of not really tell what it was. They have been able to do this so cleanly now that it's really just like laser perfect, and just shows you the way Jim Green is growing and getting better as a company. They've offered a lot of boot for the money. While this is a little bit more expensive than most of their other stuff out there, it's still really good. Now again, take my opinion with a grain of salt. I'm always trying to be as transparent as possible with you. I am friends with the owner of Jim Green. We have done a collaboration together. I got these boots for free. So there's a lot of things that you may want to sort of take into consideration with my opinion here. But I don't think you're going to find anybody when these start getting on feet who don't like them, because they're just great, easy wearing. And we all love Jim Green. How can you not love Jim Green? So whether you choose the Meander or the Workhorse, I think you're going to be very, very happy. Thank you so much for watching. I want to thank my patrons for your support. You guys are the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.